This is Chiming In. Melbourne have obviously got it right. They're doing it right, and they have done so for a long, long time.
The little period there we didn't get it right, James.
So that was the mathematics side of it, wasn't it? Why was 2011 so good from your point of view?
After 2010, and look, we were on our knees. And there was a stage where, even though we kept a brave face and we were talking it up, even deep down thinking, can we get through this?
What effect did the salary cap scandal have on the coach?
Got to all of us, but when you're the front, that's even more pressure and more stress. And there was times that I didn't think he'd continue.
I want to ask you about Ryan Papenhuyzen.
So they showed us some clips, and the first thing we all said in unison, shit, he's small. The next word was, shit, he's fast.
Yeah.
And the third one was, shit, he's tough.
Is Laurie Daley the right man to coach the Blues going forward, in your opinion? Frank Ponissi, welcome to Chiming In.
Chimes, I'm privileged to be asked and to be here, and I'm actually looking forward to it.
We go back, Frank, don't we?
We do. I think probably a bit earlier, but my first memories were over in the UK at the Kangaroo Tour.
94.
94, you roomed opposite my room.
Yeah. How do you remember that?
I definitely knew before that because, from the player agency days and the media. But they were probably great memories. The old-fashioned tours for a couple of months.
3-month tour almost.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
How many games did they play? Do you remember?
We played 18 on that tour,
right,
which is phenomenal. You think about today, at the end of a full season, you go away. We played 14 in England and 4 in France. So, quite remarkable.
And your role with the Kangaroos on that tour was?
Bit of everything, to be honest with you. It was. I've got to thank Costas you for getting me on the trip, Chimes, because remember Johnny Lewis was part of the coaching staff with Bozo back in the early 90s, and he did the 90 tour, and then all the tests up to the 94, and about a month or two before the tour, he had to pull out because Costas you had a world title fight in January. Right. So the great Bonzo called me into his office and said, he didn't ask, he said, I need you to be there.
Wow.
And I went along thinking I'm replacing Johnny Lewis, the trainer, which I knew nothing about boxing. But I was a bit of everything. I did everything from assisting Jeff Carr for the managerial role, assisting coaching with he and Bomber. It was jack of all trades, but thoroughly enjoyed it. It was enormous for my education as a young coach and a young further down track administrator, just mixing with the very best players, but also, as you know, just so enjoyable.
Yeah, it was a good trip. Hey, so you're general manager of football for the mighty Melbourne Storm, and you've been there since 2007?
Correct. You've done your homework there, John.
I do my research, Frank.
Very good.
So when you went on that route tour in 94, which was a dozen years before, what was your involvement in footy at that time?
Yeah, I was working at the New South Wales Rugby League Academy. I'd like most of us, we have high hopes of being a great rugby league player, and I got as far as being making the President's Cup team at Manly, but knew that probably been a first grade player. I could have gone a little bit further, but really didn't have the talent to go to the very top. But
any of your teammates kick on?
I'm trying to think now. Yeah. My best mate, David Hosking, the Mule. Yeah, I've known the Mule since I was a young bloke. So played junior footy at Manly with him, and we had opposite teams early, and then we ended up playing together at the mighty Valley United together. So Wayne Chisholm's another one kicked on. Obviously had a great career.
What position were you, Frank?
I thought I was a 5'8", pushed out to the centre. Just lacked a bit of speed and a bit of talent probably. But I got involved in coaching through the late great Tim Pickup. Right. I coached when I was injured. One of the many times I was injured, I was talked into coaching my old St Augustine's junior league team in the Manly Junior League, and Tim's son Martin was in the side, along with Jack Elsgood was in that side. Yeah. And I became attracted to coaching, so I was playing coaching for a while, and then got a job at the New South Wales Rugby League with Tim Pickup, played a big role in that. And so when I went on the tour, I was at the Narrabeen Academy for coaching development, which I had 6 great years there, and again terrific for my education.
So you went on to coach lower grades at Manly And the North Sydney Bears.
Not North Sydney Bears, but the great Northern Eagles, we should say, or the infamous Northern Eagles. Yeah.
Right.
I started at Manly after I finished the academy base. They got me to Manly to coach, so I coached Jersey Flag and reserve grade, and then became assistant coach to Peter Sharp, first at Manly, and then became the Northern Eagles, and that was a tough time.
Yeah.
Again, great learning experience, but the joint venture wasn't successful, and it was a tough time. And then I made the move to head overseas and took an opportunity to coach rugby union, of all things.
What did you know about rugby?
Zero.
Right.
So it was in that era where rugby league coaches, it was
Johnny Muggleton.
It was, yes. And then Les Kiss came across, and a host of others. So I had 5 years overseas coaching rugby union, first in France and in England. So, and then I got the opportunity to come back to rugby league, thinking that I was going to go back to coaching, and this role at Melbourne came available. So it was too good an opportunity to let go.
So did you aspire to be an NRL coach?
I did, James. Yeah,
Right.
I probably after I knew my playing days, I was going to probably be under 21 player for Manly the best I could. I got into coaching. I got a taste of it. I got the bug. Being at that rugby league academy at Narrabee in the early 90s, we were able to mix with every club. You know, you'd work with, say, Brian Smith at St George. I did a lot with the Knights with David Waite and the crew up there, and other coaches as well. So I knew that coaching is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then it was probably when I made the decision to go to rugby union overseas, I probably lost any chance, to be honest with you, but I don't regret it. I think what it did for me professionally, working in a different country, different sport, and what it did from a family point of view, we had a great time for 5 years over there, so have no regrets, even though it probably ended any chance of me being a head coach.
So when do you switch it off? When do you say, I'm not going to be a coach, I'm going to be an administrator? How does that happen? Opportunity?
Yeah, probably. I think 5 years out of the game, you don't realise it at the time, even though living both in France and England, you know, it's through Sky Sports, you get all the rugby league games. I was keeping up with the game as much as I could, but 5 years is a long time. So the game had probably, from a tactical point of view, was probably going past me. So 5 years is a long time, and it was probably when I'd got back, I thought I'd be able to jump in an assistant coach, and there just wasn't a job at the time. So I really had to make a decision then. And the general manager of football was a new position at the time in rugby league. Peter Parr was the first hit up at the Cowboys at the time, but everyone else, it was the traditional football manager rather than a general manager of football overseeing. And when the opportunity came at Melbourne Storm, it was quite daunting because they just won the competition. And I thought, you know, tough to go to a team that's just won a premiership. But it was Matty Johns that talked me into going. I'd known Matty for a long, long time, and he was a consultant with the Storm.
Right.
He just said, he went through the list with me, the Melbourne Storm, and you had blokes like Cameron Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, who were basically 23, 24 at the time, Dallas Johnson, a host of others, a young Israel Folau coming up. And he said, this is a team on the rise, and he gave, and I knew Craig to a degree,
Right.
but he also gave Craig an enormous rap and said, this is a place that you could really build a dynasty in. And it was pretty profound words.
Enjoying the ride. Just describe your job there as general manager of footy. What's your role?
Yeah, I try to take as much of the pressure I can off Craig, and you know, you've been around head coaches all your lifetimes. It's a pretty demanding role. There's a lot of pressure purely just to win games of football, let alone everything else that goes with the job. So, and it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger in our times. You think of the early 90s, late 80s, when it was still a tough job, but a lot simpler than it is now. You had a smaller staff, you had less numbers. For a start, the players weren't full-time professionals. As the game has got more professional, there's enormous demands on the coaches, and I've just probably seen over the years a lot of coaches, they've got that much on their plate, they take their eye off doing what they're good at, and that's coach the football team and win games. And that's what Craig's great strength. He is incredibly narrow-focused in terms of most important thing is today and this weekend's game. And I try to look everything else, whether it's staffing, look ahead with our planning, and just allow him to coach the football team.
Yeah. want to talk about Craig. Got a few tough questions for you, Frank. You ready? So it seems like every year we read Craig's about to finish, and we're not sure if he's going again. And is that a distraction for the team?
No, it isn't. And first of all, it's not a game or Craig plays. He generally doesn't know. And as I said before, he is so focused just on the now and next week, like the next coming game. Yeah. He doesn't look too far ahead. So he struggles making decisions too far. He's unbelievably in the moment making decisions. But if you pin him down to, hey, can we do this in a couple of weeks? He just gets rattled. He's just very, very focused on the now. Okay. And that's what's made him so good. Yeah. So he doesn't think too far ahead. And he puts so much into his coaching. You see him in the box and after a game. And he just wants to make the right decision. Has he got the energy, and has he, can go again? So, but it does. He's built a fantastic team around him. He's got great assistant coaches that have been with him for a long time. We've got a great performance staff, and the club's in a strong position. So, no, we understand. We've been doing it for. He's been on a 5-year contract with a 1-year rolling contract. Yeah. So, and we've had decent success in those 5 years. So
when he steps out, it's not going to be shock, horror. What are we going to do? We're doomed. You've got a contingency plan.
It has, yeah. Sure. No, we had to, and it was probably got some good practice when with the big three. There was always a theory that when the big three retire, the place will go downhill, and so we got ready for that, and this will be a big one. There's no doubt about it. Losing Craig when it eventually comes, even though I don't think it's going to be for a while, John. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think he'll keep going and going and going, but at some stage it will, and hopefully we'll have things in place to continue.
Do you think he'll give you a reasonable head start when he is going to?
Oh, he will. There's no doubt about it. He is, when you've been there 23 years and invested in a place, he generally cares about the football club. So he'll want to make sure that he gives the club every opportunity to continue succeeding.
Do you think he would ever coach another NRL club? It's only your opinion, right?
Not at this stage. Right. Maybe a couple of years ago, maybe. Yeah. Just as a challenge, but at this stage, I would find it really, really difficult for him to go. But you never know.
Will the new Storm coach, when we get to the new Storm coach, have Melbourne DNA in him? Will he be a Melbourne person?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that'll be a decision for the owners to make that decision. But we have spoken about it numerous times, and even though we haven't mentioned specific names, that would be our first preference, to get someone either in the system right now, down there, or a coach that's been there at some stage, either as a player or definitely as a coach. So there's a fair pool to select from. So I think, whilst I wouldn't say 100% black and white we will, if I was a betting man, I would say there's a high chance it'll be a neck person with some form of Storm DNA, yes.
So what makes Craig so unique as a coach?
Simplicity would probably be the first thing I think of. He doesn't overcomplicate things. Yeah. He keeps things incredibly simple. So it makes things understand. It makes him understand as a player what your role is, and there's no grey with Craig. It's very black and white. You know exactly what you have to do. So I think that's he's got high standards, everything he does, and he demands high standards, but he doesn't demand things that players aren't capable of doing. He knows their capabilities. He makes them, this is what you're capable of doing and what you can do. And his ability to just maintain those standards week in, week out for a whole year in, is phenomenal. It doesn't wear him out. It's, he does well in the pre-season. He refreshes himself and, just has breaks, and we go on different study trips, or some people like to refer them as junket trips sometimes. That's very harsh. But he does. He'll refresh, recharge his batteries and go again. But simplicity and maintaining high standards, I'd say, would be his number one. And he generally cares about the players. People see the Craig Bellamy in the box and fired up, but there's a completely different side to Craig, where he'll just sit down with a player and talk to him about just life and how he's going and put his arm around him, so people don't see that. And that's a part where the players really appreciate and they genuinely play for him.
I remember talking to Brett White once, and I think whilst he's playing for Melbourne, and I think he's had beaten the Broncos 30-4, and I said, oh, geez, I bet Bellyache was happy with that result. He said he was absolutely filthy because you'd let a try in the second half. Is that the type of proficiency he wants from his players?
He does, absolutely does. He it's close enough's not good enough.
Yeah.
For Craig, he aims for it to be as good as you possibly can, and I'd imagine that game that would have been a try that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Either through sloppy play to lead them the ball, but something that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
You know, if it was something that the Broncos did was just pretty difficult to stop.
Yeah.
You know, he's a realist, but I'd say there'd be something that we could have stopped, and that's what, and just not going to the final minute would have been his biggest, bugbear.
So I had a beer with him about 10 years ago, and I was talking to him about the Storm, and I think I said to him, at some stage you're going to have to expect to dip. I said, success is cyclical at times. The Dragons in the 60s and Brisbane, and at some stage it disappears until you find it again. But it hasn't been the case with Melbourne. I mean, he's proved me wrong. What's the secret to being so competitive?
Oh, look, I think that a lot goes into it. At the forefront, he's got to be highly responsible, because any organisation, you need a really strong leader. So everything that I spoke about before, James, is that he was a sessionist. We're not going to have a rebuilding year. Every week we give it our best shot. Mm. Whoever's got a jumper on, we're going to give it our best shot. He doesn't believe in, this year will be a rebuilding year for next year. It's just every game, and even if we've got players out, he expects those players in that purple jersey to give their absolute best. So I think him being obsessed with those high standards, giving your best, has driven everyone in the organisation. But as you know, Chimes, you need good people around you, and he's got wonderful coaches around him, great performance staff, and good people in the club. So I just think he's driven for high. I'm not going to use success. He's driven to be your very best. And no clear examples. Last Saturday night we played Manly. It was a big night for the club. It was our annual old boys night, which every club does, and really pumped up. And we played poorly. And it could have been, we had a late controversial penalty. Those things just didn't enter his. He was just filthy the way we played in front of the old boys. Yeah. So it wasn't because it was just the way we played with the old boys there that he just felt really let down. And they're just the standards that he keeps, and he's driven pretty hard this week. So, mate, you have a unbelievable record in relation to round one of each season. I don't think you've ever lost under Craig, is that right? No, never. No, 23 seasons unbeaten. That's just unbelievable. Yeah. What's he like leading up to round one? I mean, does he tell the boys, this is round one, this is what we're doing, I expect us to win on? Well, I think over the last few years, or probably now for a while, I think the players are aware of that. So and he really, he incredibly humble, so he takes it away from him. So it's about us. Yeah. So it's a record that we've got as a club, not Craig Bellamy's record. So it's a record that we have as a club for 23 years. So probably for the last 5 to 10 years, we've built on that, something we want to protect, something we're proud of. So we talk about it now a lot more than we used to, but he removes himself from it. It's not Craig Bellamy's record, it's a Melbourne Storm record. And I think it's just a reflection of the pre-season. They're tough. Yeah. I'm not going to say we train any tougher than any other team, but it's just the intensity for a pre-season. And the whole focus on pre-season is round one. Let's be ready for round one. So there's a focus from the moment you get there, how many days till round one. So there's a big emphasis on that. Melbourne have obviously got it right. They're doing it right, and they have done so for a long, long time. The little period there we didn't get it right, Charles. That was the mathematics side of it, wasn't it? But, mate, the club started in 97. Yeah. Did Melbourne get a free hit when the Perth Reds folded and a lot of quality players went to the Storm? Do you think they had some help there? Oh, look, that would have helped, but you also got to pick the right players. And I think the club is built on enormously strong foundations. And I think John Rebo's got to be given unbelievable credit for setting the club up. And he did it really well. Yeah, he got those players, but he had a couple of ingredients too. Like he brought down Chris Johns, and then he brought down Lazo from Brisbane, a club that had really started taking professionalism to another level. a lot of success in the way the club was, off the field in terms of it was branded, and so he had that expertise. And then he brought Chris Anderson from the Bulldogs, and we all know the Dogs are a family club and built on that type of reputation, hard working. So Chris brought that DNA. So it was a marriage of the Broncos and the Bulldogs in a bizarre way.
Cleverly done.
It was, and I remember very, very early, because I had actually an opportunity to go and be the first assistant coach at the Storm, and quite bizarrely, I turned it down to stay at the Manly and then into the Northern Eagles. So I got that one really wrong. Yeah. But I remember talking to Chris Anderson at the time, and when he asked me to go down, and he only had a handful of players signed, and I said to him, mate, are you going to be successful? And you had Lazo, you had Rodney Howe, Robbie Kearns, Brett Camorley, and I think Scott Hill. I think that was about it at that stage. Yeah. And his philosophy is, as long as you've got a strong forward pack with a good halfback, the rest will fill in. So he built his philosophy. It was a really strong philosophy they built on and off the field, and I think those men involved early then picked the right players from the defunct Western Reds and the Hunter Mariners. Paul Marquette was just a player that probably no, but he
soldier.
He was, and he just typified everything that club was about early on. So we're really lucky that had those great leaders that put together that club and set the foundations right.
Mate, with recruitment, Melbourne have a knack of finding players from left field that people never heard of before, and they become established stars. You must be very happy with the way the club has recruited from the beginning.
Yeah, well, again, I think they led the way. John Rebo and everyone that was involved in those early days. And every club talks about getting the right player with the right character, but players that suit the club too. And just because a player is suited to one club doesn't make him a bad player and doesn't make him a bad person. Some players are suited more at certain clubs depending, as you mentioned, the word DNA, what they stand for, how they play. So it's picking players that suit your club rather than just necessarily there's lots of players out there, and as I said, there's some that probably wouldn't suit the Storm, but they're certainly good players and they're certainly good people. But so picking the people is important. In the last 13 years, when Paul Bunn, who came down from the Broncos, done a phenomenal job with our recruitment. He's the first port of call. He's out the one looking for the players, and he brings them to Craig and myself.
Sorry, mate. It's not so much Craig going, I want you to go and get player X. It's a team effort to recruit.
It is. Yeah. So he
must have great trust in your recruitment.
He does. Yeah. They'll bring the players to Craig and myself. Yeah. We'll do our homework with them. We'll meet the player and then really find out if that player, can fit into the club. Yeah. And I think, most we've got right, but we've also got a couple wrong as well. Yeah. And that's just. But I think knowing what your club's about and getting people that suit is the big thing.
The advantage of being so successful is that some players, when their agent rings them and says, I've just had a call from Melbourne, they'd like to talk to you, they don't think automatically about how much money they're going to give me. They think, I have a chance of winning a comp if they take me, which is a huge advantage to you when you're recruiting.
Yeah, and that's built over time. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. And also, there's other factors that I remember a perfect example was Jason Rolls. He was on the outer at the Roosters, I think he had a year to go, and at the back end of his career, and I remember speaking to him when I got the tip from his agent, George Mimas, that his number one motive coming down was to play with Cameron Smith. So again, that was the attraction. So having those players too, as well as a coach of Craig's calibre, that definitely attracts players, and of course, the chance of successes. But I think, players attract players and coaches attract players as well.
So rugby league in Melbourne is growing quickly. Your flag team, the under-21s, are up the top of the ladder. A lot of those kids, homegrown, how many are starting to pop through from...
Yeah, we're getting quite a few, Chimes, and it's something we're really proud of, but also something that we're a little bit disappointed in ourselves with all our success over the years. I don't like using the word neglected, but we probably have taken our eye off the ball on developing the game in Melbourne. There's NRL Victoria that do a great job in terms of the grassroots and getting the game, and they've done, like, we've got 6,000 juniors down there now, and boys and girls playing from under sixes all the way to A grade. But the elite side of it, the pathways and improving and giving kids an opportunity, we haven't done that really well. You know, we've got to put our hands up on that. So that's what the last couple of years we did it probably when we lost all those players to the Dolphins at the start of 22. You know, we lost the Bromwich boys and Kafusi. Brandon Smith went to the Roosters. It was a big chunk. It was over 1,000 NRL games gone in one fell swoop. And as you know, Chimes, they're hard to replace, especially when there's a new team coming in. The pool was shrinking. And we could all see we all knew what Penrith were doing. And I saw that in the early 90s with what the Knights were doing with their pathway system, and thinking, we either got to do something, not so much to rival your Penrith, but do something that suits your. So that's when we, 2 years ago now, undertook this mission just to take over the pathways in Melbourne. So we've now got a Harold Matthews SG Ball jersey flag. Very confident we'll have a State Cup team, New South Wales Cup side from next season. And giving young players in Melbourne an opportunity to play for the Storm, which they didn't have not long ago, and putting a lot of coaching in them. So we're still like recruiting players from our traditional southeast Queensland and New Zealand and the islands, but there's some kids coming through, and that under-21 side, we're running at the moment each week 17 probably, I don't know, eight to 9 Victorian players. So it's and that's only going to get bigger with the work we'll do.
So you mentioned the big three before, and we've had the big four in Melbourne. Is it a tried and true formula for putting your squad together to have your successful spine? Is that, it seems to be the way Melbourne do it, whereas some other clubs seem to be all over the shop.
Yeah, and look, that it is. It definitely is. That philosophy came about through the salary cap when 2010 we were over the limit, obviously, over the cap. So for the following year, we had to get under the cap. So we had to make some big decisions, who we keep and who we unfortunately have to let go. And so because Cameron Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, they weren't just our best players. They were at that stage still mid-20s, but they were also phenomenal leaders. And we knew that to us to get through this pretty dark time, we need the best leaders. So we had to do everything to keep them and put a massive stress on our salary cap with 3 players like that. But they control the game. They've got so much influence, and that was probably showed us the way. That's the way we want to go as a club. And then, to replace them was, we weren't going to replace them like for like, but in terms of players that could control the game. And that's where our philosophy is to make sure that we've got a good spine for years to come.
I heard you talk before about 2011, where you've said that during your whole time there, that was probably one of your most, I wouldn't say favourite seasons, but fulfilling seasons in your role. Why was 2011 so good from your point of view?
After 2010, and look, we were on our knees, and there was a stage where, even though we kept a brave face and we were talking it up, even deep down thinking, can we get through this? The game in Melbourne had only been there, the Storm had only been there, I think, 12, 13 years. Can we get through it? So then we had to completely strip the squad down for obvious reasons. So when the team started, you looked in one part of the dressing room, you saw those 3 and a couple of other good players, and Ryan Hinchcliffe, and there was Adam Blair, and there was a few others. Then we had a lot of young kids on the other side of the locker room that either hadn't played NRL, like the Jess Bromwiches and Matt Duffy and Kevin Proctor, and then in the middle we just had some blokes we just picked up off the scrap heap. Basically, the other clubs didn't want. So our list didn't, in terms of all the other lists we've had over the years, it's certainly overall in terms of depth, experience, wasn't our strongest. It'd probably be one of the least, definitely least experienced. And then coming back after 2010, to do what we did and become minor premiers, we won a then record club 13 games in a row, and we just got pipped in the prelim by the Warrior, a really good Warrior side, where Sean Johnson just was too good for us on the night. that was a year that kind of really re-established the club and set everything up for where we are now. I don't think we would be where we are in the position we are now without 2011. And I look back at one player that particular is Jamin Lowe. Jamin, he couldn't get a contract elsewhere. He'd organised a job up in the mines, up in North Queensland. He was ready to go, and we had to talk Jamin Lowe into coming to Melbourne. To play, and what
for
he
a
did,
modest contract,
very modest, and for what he did those 2 years, and he played a significant role in helping young Jesse Bromwich at that stage become the front row. Then end up becoming phenomenal for the club. Still got a great ties with the club, and a number of those stories from that year.
What effect did that the salary cap scandal have on the coach, Craig? How did he handle it? Because he looked as if it really got to him.
It did. Yeah, it did. And it got to all of us. But when you're the front, that's even more pressure and more stress. And there was times that I didn't think he'd continue.
Right.
After 2010, I remember one moment there at a conversation just after the year, and I thought he was going to pull the pin. Thankfully, he didn't. And I think he continued, to be brutally honest, Chimes. He felt an obligation rather than at the time really wanting to do it. But 2011 re-energised him. And that's what that team did. And there's even someone who was going, I thought probably, he's never said this, and in my mind I probably think at the end of he said to himself at the beginning of 2011, I'll get the team ready and then I'll move on after 2011. But as I said, that 2011 was such a great year in terms of the group we had and what they did, and nearly win a premiership, nearly getting a grand final was at the beginning of the year unheard of. I remember we played our second trial up at Redcliffe. We played the Broncos, and they smashed us. They smashed us 42-6. And I remember having a beer with him in the Leafs club afterwards, and he said, "I think we're in for a tough year, Frank."
Yeah.
That's where we started, and we finished a try away from being in a grand final. So, yeah, it definitely helped that year to pick him up.
Do you think he would have been considering walking away from rugby league altogether, the way he was feeling at the time, or just stepping out of the storm?
Yeah, no, I think maybe rugby league. It was, it rocked him. He got rattled, and everything he built up to 2010 was, let's be honest, a lot of people probably had question marks, because he'd won 2 premierships, been in 4 consecutive grand finals, 3 consecutive minor premierships. So quite rightly, people on the outside would have questioned, they haven't had success because of the salary cap and doing this and that, and not just him but the club, but he would have taken that personally. So it was just a way that, that there would have been stages that probably would have got to him. He could have easily walked away. But thankfully all of us, he didn't, and here we are today.
Like a fair few in your operation at the time, I think Bellyache was totally blindsided by the salary cap discovery. Does he have hands-on in relation to what offers are made to players today, or has he ever had any real involvement?
Things have changed enormously, as you can appreciate, Chimes. Now we run a list management committee, which is made of about 6 of us, including our chairman, our CEO, myself, Craig, our salary cap. So things have changed enormously since then. So, and that's just not from a contract offers, but it's also forecasting how your list is going to be in 2 years' time. So we do a lot of. It's just not about the now.
Yeah.
So that's now taken. Whilst it was a horrible time, a lot of good of it's come out, and that's one of the things. The governance and how we do things is changed completely in terms of and helping us with our success. It's kind of now looking, rather than just this year and next year, it's looking what's going to be 27 going to be like in 28.
Yeah.
And that changes all the time, but you've got to have some plan.
Yeah.
A fluid plan that changes, but you got rather than just let's just purely focus about 25 right now. It's looking ahead. So I think things have changed enormously.
So the day you landed in Melbourne to take on this new role, I understand you went and interviewed everyone in the club, got to know them and wanted to know what their roles were and what they're all about. What was that like?
You have done your homework.
Oh, I did my homework.
Like a detective, haven't you? I don't know why I did that, and I just, but it's actually gave someone who's just become head coach somewhere, I gave him the same advice. I just said, that's the best thing I did. And I don't know why I did it. Yeah. I just did it. I just sat with every single person from Craig all the way to our match day volunteers. You know, it took, I don't know, 6 weeks, I suppose, over a coffee or over a beer, away from the office.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be, I took it out of that formal environment. And I just asked them about themselves as people, because there's not many I knew, so I wanted to know them as people. I wanted to get their idea on what the place is about, what they do in their job, and I didn't do any talking. I did a little bit, but I was just mainly listening, and probably didn't realise at the time how important that was until Troy Thompson, who's now the GM of footy at the Broncos.
Good fella. Yeah.
Good fella, that Tommy.
Yeah.
He told me years ago, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, and he said that's the best thing he ever did.
Wow.
So it was just kind of, I don't know why I did it, but I certainly advise, anyone that goes in places, and it's just not the key people either. I think it's easy to go and talk to the big decision makers or the key people, but, I was speaking to the blokes that just, look after the dressing room and the volunteers, our stats blokes, and it was just got to know them, and they got to know me a little bit as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, those types of people that you just mentioned then, they're really unsung heroes, aren't they, within a footy organisation? Every footy club needs them, don't they?
You can't survive without them.
Yeah.
And the better they are, the better the organisation. And, the people, your head coach and lesser degree myself, we get those compliments, but there's just no way in the world you could do it without the people behind. There's just no chance. And thankfully we've got a culture that really respects and appreciates those people that do, any job, but they're just as important. It's in every person, and you've got to make them understand that they feel valued, and make them understand that their job, whatever their job, plays a role in the club's success. And if they feel that and they feel valued, you're going to get the very best out of people.
So the game's heading in the right direction, and with a new TV deal coming up, there's going to be more influx of funding. How important is grassroots, and will Melbourne be looking for support from the NRL to continue that growth in your region? Oh,
just the question, it's enormous, it really has. And I think I mentioned before, Chimes were disappointed with us that we haven't done too much as a club. That also hurt for me, because I come from that development background, as we mentioned earlier. I had 6 years at the Rugby League Academy, so I know the importance of development. And, and I think the league in the early 90s, 94, remember, was a phenomenal year. The game was its highest. And, we've got to thank John Quayle for a lot of that, and Ken Arthurson, but John in particular, he saw the vision. He set up the academy at the back end of 89 to start 1990 to grow the game, and look what it did to the game then. So we've got to sometimes go back in history and learn those things. So it's great the game is thriving up top. The game is thriving up top. It's probably as good as the game been since 94. But we need to do a lot more at the bottom end to ensure more kids are playing, and then give them that inspirational pathway that there's a real chance for them to play, because there's more things for the young people to do these days, and then you got the girls' game. So as good as we're growing the game up top and growing it with new teams and going to Las Vegas, which was all fantastic, we can't forget the bottom. So we've got to do as much as we can to make sure we continue developing the game.
I want to ask you about Ryan Papenhuyzen and his courage and resilience. I don't think I can recall seeing too many players that have been through more physically than what he's had to go through. What type of person is Ryan, and was there a time there when you saw those x-rays of his shattered knee that you thought, we're going to lose this bloke?
Yeah, I did. And it's always his size you talk about. I remember going right back when our recruitment people, remember the things you do remember really clearly, and things I can't remember from 3 days ago. But I remember we played the Tigers in Sydney, and we're staying down at the Novotel at Darling Harbour, and our recruitment staff they had a bit of a get together, and they showed us a tape, myself, Craig, and our coaches, of this little player playing SG ball for the Tigers. And they've been raving about him. So they showed us some clips, and the first thing we all said in unison, shitty small.
He was a little one.
He was
a little wiry little.
He was, and had the headgear on, and watching more. And then the two words that came together, the next word was "shitty's fast," and the third one was "shitty's tough." And so we picked that as I think he was 17 at the time. So that's been those three words have been, he's small, he's incredibly quick, but it's that toughness and I mean. He was at his absolute pinnacle there, at his peak, I should say, that 2020 grand final, that performance he put on to win the Clive Churchill medal. And then he started 2021 unbelievably well.
He was on his way to the Daley M that year.
He was flying. And people forget, everyone talks about the knee that he got in 22, but remember he got knocked out in the game at Magic Weekend, which kept him out for something like 2 months. And when he came back, he struggled to get back to that level he was before, and then there was starting to get doubts then, but he worked hard. He came back the following year, and then of course had the knee, and then there was doubts in everyone. It would have been doubts in his own mind, no doubt about it, but the way he's fought back is credit to him.
So mate, prior to him even leaving the runway and becoming an NRL star, there was some concern of whether or not he was going to actually make it, because he spent a fair bit of time in Q Cup and was, I wouldn't say struggling, but wasn't lighting it up. Did the club ever have doubts that he was going to push on and make it?
Yeah, well, he had a few little injuries early, which probably held him back. And but I remember him. There was we had a game at Penrith, and he was the 18th man. And I got a mate of mine to come pick him up, bring him back to Sydney, and then he's fly out to play a game because
Sunny Coast, was it?
Sunny Coast. Yeah. We thought that he might have in the next few weeks. Just we needed him to keep playing. So. And he was starting to play well, and you didn't have to be Einstein or a Rhodes Scholar work out. This bloke can play, but we didn't know where he fitted. And that stage, there was it was a year after Billy just retired, and Jerome Hughes had probably had the fullback spot, and even Scott Drinkwater was, he was nipping at it. So Craig picked Ryan on to be on the bench to play the Bulldogs, I think it was, down at Amy Park early 2019, picked him on the bench. I remember asking Craig, how are you going to use him? And he said, I haven't got a clue. I said, we'll just see how the game goes and I'll whack him on somewhere. That's the honest truth. It wasn't had this great plan and just got an opportunity, played in the middle of the ruck. And I remember saying, he's a bit small for the ruck there, Craig, but he showed something. But he hung around in that bench spot, and then again, he got his opportunity in the Magic Weekend when he came off the bench, because Jerome Hughes got knocked out. So he came off, he came on, and bang, that was the moment that you're thinking, he's got an X factor, this bloke.
So, mate, a couple of other greats of the club, Cam Smith and Billy Slater, superstars of the game. They capable of coaching NRL if they wanted to one day?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Billy has shown what he's done at Origin. Massive doubts on him. He had a fantastic start within the first two series, lost last year, lost game one, and that was pressure. We all knew what and the way he brought that side. I don't think he gets the credit. Did a phenomenal job. We see it because he does some coaching with us one day a week, coaching the outside backs and our attack. And you just know when he speaks that everyone just stops and listens. So he's got the know-how, he's got the passion, but he's incredibly, a bit like yourself, Johns, in terms of his research. I mean, we laugh at, when he did the Melbourne Cup, he interviewed the jockeys after every race, that Melbourne Cup Carnival. Like the research that he did on it was phenomenal. His attention to detail. I spoke to someone from Channel 9 not long after he retired, and I said, how does Billy go? He said, he's the best. He said, he comes in totally prepared on the two teams that are playing, on the players. So that, yes, he's got the ability, he's got the passion, he's got all the knowledge in his head, but it's that attention to detail, which he could be a phenomenal head coach if he ever wanted to be. He loves coaching Queensland, but one day you think he might look for something different. Cameron Smith, he's completely different. He's more laid back. But in terms of his knowledge of the game, one, second to none, but two, people ask me who was the best player who've been involved. That's a difficult question, but I do know who's the most influential player, and that was Cameron Smith.
Yeah.
He was incredibly influential in the game, influential at our club, and I think he's got that composure and that ability to influence a group that can make him successful. So he'd need someone organised around him, old Smithy.
Yeah.
But he would be a phenomenal coach.
But they are legends of the game. Even Cooper Cronk, whose knowledge of the game is there for all to see. Could Cooper coach?
No doubt. Well, and in a bizarre way, and Craig's the first to say it, that we used to have 3 coaches with Craig when they all played, and they were the coaches on the field. You saw them how they like that. We've got really good leaders now, excellent leaders, but they were another level in terms of their influence on the group and the way they control things. So there's absolutely no doubt they could be coaches, but the media pays pretty well, John. So
yeah, it does. Good job.
And there's less stress too.
Yeah, a lot less stress. Frank, last year you were invited to join Madge as team manager for the New South Wales State of Origin team and brought the trophy back to New South Wales. And again, this year you worked with Laurie Daley in the same role. I wanted to ask you about Laurie, and obviously I have to declare that I've got an interest in Laurie because he's a good friend of mine, but he came under an awful lot of criticism after losing Game 3 against a side that played all but the perfect game. Is Laurie Daley the right man to coach the Blues going forward, in your opinion?
Absolutely no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I've known Laurie since the '94 Kangaroo Tour. So sometimes people ask that question. And I've always liked Laurie. It's very hard not to like Laurie. So you become mates with him, and so sometimes your friendship and your loyalty to someone can cloud your the way you think. But I had a good chat to Craig about it just after Origin 3, and we went back through the whole way. Could we done things differently? What did we do? And there's always little things you can be better, but I'm talking little things. But generally speaking, those players, and I think the players would be the first to admit, the preparation in Laurie's role, you couldn't fault it. Yeah, Wall could have done things better, but he's definitely his passion for the blue jersey is second to none. The way he worked with the assistant coaches and gave them autonomy to do things, but still take control was very impressive. So all it's going to do is just fuel the fire more. We've got a great staff. We talked about having we've got great players. I just think he deserves another opportunity.
So he's got great assistants there in Matt King, Brett White, Dean Young. He's got Craig there advising, and he's got you there behind him. If he wasn't capable of coaching that side, would you put your hand up and go to the New South Wales League and say he's not up to it?
Look, and one thing, whether we win or lose, we did it last year when we won, and we'll do it again this year. You review. I think any good organisation does that. So there'll be a review, just like there was last year when we won. So yeah, you would put things there, and if you got asked the question, you would. But I genuinely believe in the people we've got, and I believe in Laurie.
Yeah. I guess my point was, does the staff have confidence in him?
Absolutely,
not just
they do.
you.
Absolutely, they do.
Yeah.
It was always going to be tough for Laurie because last year, 2024, Madge putting that group together and what we did, and Madge and Laurie are different. Not good different, not bad different.
Yeah.
Just different. So, but there was a lot of things that we did last year that Laurie adapted, and he did that really well. But it was the way he just allowed the coaches to coach. And so I've got a question. Someone asked me recently, not long ago, I think last week, is you mentioned all those people involved coaching. They says there are too many coaches like it. And look, that could be a fair question, but we've got to remember these players all come from clubs that have got big staffs, they've got big coaching staff, so it's nothing different. We're just running. It's not exactly the same as NRL because Origin is different, but it's just giving the players the best preparation they possibly can. I mean, I'd imagine not being in the Queensland camp, wouldn't be too dissimilar.
Yeah.
Billy he's got some great assistant coaches around him. He'd let them do their job. But at the end of the day, just like Billy's the right person, for Queensland. I have no doubt that Laurie's our right.
So the buck stops with head coach. I understand that. How involved are the assistants in the campaign?
Oh, they play a significant role, but there's an enormous amount of planning that goes into every camp, into every series, into every day. So the amount of meetings that we'd hold and go through, and would always be conscious of making sure that meetings weren't too long or trainings weren't too long. It's talked about all the time. The planning and the science and everything, and the art, I call it art, getting a feel for it is enormous. So when you've got the expertise of all those people, and that's the beauty of having some of those people involved. And one we're neglected who's still developing as a coach, but great to have around is Boyd Cordner. And Boyd, he's the most recently retired player, so he can still think as a player. So he's now strong enough to say that got to pull back on this or should be doing on that. So there's a lot of talking going on, a lot of planning, but when we're in front of the players, it's pretty clear. Keep it simple, and everyone's just got their little parts without overdoing it.
So how'd you enjoy Origin?
Besides losing,
absolutely
loved it. I really do. I loved it last year, and I loved it this year. Besides, it's just first of all, there's like no other in terms of, I can equate it having 3 grand finals in a row mid-season. The build-up, the intensity, it's enormous. Working with the very best players from the different clubs, I found that fascinating. Get to know them. Usually they're on the other side of the fence when you're playing, and you become arch rivals. Especially with us in Melbourne, we developed a pretty fierce rival with Penrith and the Roosters, just to name 2. And suddenly those players, you had nothing to do with them. Suddenly now you're working with them, and you get a completely different appreciation of them as people and as players. I've enjoyed that. That's been great. And as I mentioned, the staff, it was just a really good group that working together. So, no, it's demanding. You leave Origin each time emotionally drained, regardless of the result.
It's different, like 94 Tour, when you're representing Australia, working over there. It's different level, isn't it, Origin?
It is. And
I'm not trying to put down Test footy, but it's a big engine, isn't it?
It is, and it's because you've got, unlike the Kangaroo Tour where we're building up to the Test, this is bang, you hit it. The other thing too, which is really challenging, and it is for an old fart like me as an administrator and Craig as a coach, but especially for the players, it's done mid-season. So each time you finish, then you got to change your top, your hat, and now you're in clubland again. I take my hat off the players, because it's just to be able to switch on, switch off, and go to your next job and do that 3 times. And then especially after going 3, then you've got the run into the finals. It is something like nothing else. Like, it's not like, whereas the Kangaroo Tour, end of the year, as long as it was, you knew you had a break at the end of it. And plus, during the Kangaroo Tour, there's nothing else. There's just kangaroos. Here you still got your club commitment. So it's taxing, challenging, but you wouldn't have it any other way.
So can you explain to us in relation to the rigours of the game and the body having to put up with so much for such a long period? Are players today, this round, getting towards the end of the season, are they carrying injuries?
Absolutely, they are. Yeah, they are.
They're battered and bruised?
They are, I mean, obviously there's injuries that's going to, like we got one Ryan Papenhuyzen at the moment, like, he could have at a pinch played tonight, but it's an injury where if we push him too hard, he could tear it and he'd be out for a longer period of time. It's a soft tissue injury. So those type of injuries you got to be, but, there's, whether you got bruised ribs or you're carrying a bit of a shoulder injury, the tape they get. I'd love to own a strapping tapping company. They just put, it's enormous what they go through, and it's all about recovering and now keeping. It's a tough time because you got to win games to either get in the 8 or stay in the top 4, or as you go stay in the top 2. But you also got to have a little eye to September, saying, and we've done that over the years. We've got into September and we've crawled over the line. So September comes, it's a new competition. Yeah. If you're not fresh, both mentally and physically, you're not going to do well. So it's the ability to keep winning games, keep momentum, but ensuring your players that are in the best possible condition come September.
So you'd have players on your roster now that you know will need surgery at the end of the season already, but they're playing through. They earn their money, don't they?
They do. And obviously, look, if there's an injury where they have to stop and they're out for the season, whether they just can't continue or it's going to be something that's going to affect them for future life, they're no-brainers. But there are others that players just play on.
You patch them up.
Yeah, they patch them
Put
up.
them back out.
Yeah. And the heart, I'll be honest with you, Chimes, is the vast majority of players, and it has been since the game was, they're the hardest to convince that, hey, you can't play.
Yeah.
It's even like after Origin. Trying to tell a player he's not playing after Origin is it's tough because it's like a badge of honour, that playing after Origin, but sometimes you're thinking, we need you to have a rest.
Yeah.
You got to force them sometimes because if it was up to them, they'll continue playing. Not for all of them, but for most of them.
Now, Frank, I don't want to embarrass you, but 12 months or so ago, an AFL club reached out to you to try and recruit you to get you to go to the dark side and work for them. What the hell was going on there?
Yeah, look, it didn't go too far because I knocked it on the head pretty early. But look, being in Melbourne, and I think you got to live in Melbourne to really understand the AFL game. And for us, we enjoy it because it's an outlet for us. It's something different. It gets our mind off, even though rugby league's a passion, not a job. But when you do it 24/7, so because you live in Melbourne and we're proud of living in Melbourne, it's the number one sport in the city, and it's huge. So we've all got our different teams, and it's just our little hobby more or less. So it's just something different. We're rugby league people through and through. So just because we follow a dozen people, I don't want people to think, they think AFL is better. It's just some follow the NFL and everyone's got something different. But living in Melbourne, a lot of us follow AFL clubs. So. And with the success of the Storm, we've had a lot of interactions with different AFL clubs down there, which is great because we learn off them as much as they learn of us.
You've employed AFL people.
We have, yeah. So it was just, and I've because we're right next door to Collingwood, and we've employed Collingwood people. Their current head coach Craig McRae years ago was our kicking coach for a number of years. Nick Maxwell, who captained their premiership in 2010. He was our leadership coach. And as I said, we're basically right next door and got to know him pretty well. And I've become a Collingwood supporter through my son, by the way. So the CEO basically just popped the question, but didn't get. I'm disappointed it made the media, to be honest with you, but that's...
How to get out, Frank?
I don't know. But it was... Yeah, it didn't last long. But you felt nice to be asked, but... and part of it says it'd be a nice challenge, but look, I'm a rugby league man, and it's just... And I love what I do. So it wasn't that I didn't want to go, I just love what I do. I love my job at the Storm. And we spoke about pathways, got a real passion to grow the game in Melbourne in terms of getting more Victorian kids playing. And that's what I do the next 5 to 10 years. And I just want to really put as much time in there. And that's, in the end, that was the overriding factor. So it was never a consideration because of that.
Has Melbourne, the city, now embraced the Melbourne Storm?
Absolutely, no doubt it has. Yeah, it's... Again, going back to the early days of John Rebo, didn't come in and try we're going to be bigger and better than the AFL because you're going to come off second best there. But he created a mentality. We wanted to be everyone's second team. So because AFL is such an obsession with the Melbourne people, they've all got their teams, Collingwood, Carlton, Essendon, Hawthorn, whoever they are, but we want you to follow Storms to be your NRL team. So that was the philosophy he used and the philosophy the club's ever used ever since. And it's funny, Chimes, it's State of Origin enormous. Every time they go, they'll fill MCG, which is quite remarkable. 90,000.
They love sport.
It's fantastic. Yeah. But because we're Melbourne, that's the attraction first before the game of NRL. If that, I'll say people, I don't, not really a rugby league, but I love the Storm. I thought that's a bizarre comment. How can you not be real rugby but love the Storm? But it's that proud of their city, so they get around us, and of course success helps as well. There's no doubt about it. So, but and it's just different. It's different. We market it different. Game day is completely different to AFL. So to now we're averaging over 20,000 people, and it's good to see that grow over the years, because we're something different to the AFL.
Yeah.
Not better or in competition, just different.
Yeah. Now, you're a Northern Beaches boy, Frank. Will you go home one day?
Oh, I don't think so. As much as I love the area, and I've still got both my parents still living, and got my family, I've got all my good mates down there, so I get there as much as I can. But about 18 years now in Melbourne. I moved down there when my boys were 9 and 11, so they've grown up there. They spent 5 years overseas before that, so they left Manly when they were 3 and 5, so that's not really so. They're set up down there. My wife's set up. She enjoys it. So, and as I said, there's a lot of things I want to do with the club, for the next few years, especially with the pathways, and still, helping the NRL and doing what I can there. So, no, I enjoy living there, but get to Sydney so many times, it kind of got that has that fix. But I certainly miss part of living on the Northern Beach. There's no doubt about that.
So, what's the best thing about your job?
Keeps you young.
Yeah.
It keeps being around young people, keeps you young.
Something different every day too, isn't it?
It is.
Expect the unexpected.
It does. And I just, I think it's just getting ready for something, getting planning, whether it's getting ready for a game or if it's pre-season, get ready for the next year, and just something. There's always a new challenge. There's what's ahead of us, and I think that's what I enjoy. But generally, being around young people definitely keeps you a lot younger than if I wasn't there.
So what's your expectations for this year for the Storm? Is there a premiership looming?
We're going to give it we've got an opportunity to win a premiership. So, it's, as I said before, Craig doesn't believe this is our window or whatever. You need luck. There's no doubt about it, through injuries and anything else. But we've got a good opportunity to give it a real good crack. So we'd be disappointed if we don't give it a good crack. So... it's at the moment it's finishing as high as you can on the ladder. Yeah, the top 4 is critical, even though I think Penrith might be a bit. They might change.
They haven't gone away yet, have they?
Yeah, they haven't gone away, and I didn't expect them to go away. But so it's getting that top 4, and then getting that top 4 and getting that top 2 to get that first home final. The higher you finish, the bigger the chance you got. But if we stay fit and healthy and we're energised for September. Like a few other teams, we'll give it a good crack.
Do you ever regret not making it as an NRL coach? I know there's only limited jobs and it's tough to do, but was that your dream?
Well, my original dream was to be a player. I would have loved to play in first grade. Going as a young kid, sitting on the hill of Brookie Oval and watching those players. I can remember watching games in the early 70s, a young bloke, all the way through. So that was probably that's more. I would have loved. And I said I don't think I had the ability to play for. I could have probably played reserve grade, maybe. But as a coach, I probably had more chance to become realistic than a player. So I don't. I probably at the time I did, but I found this job that I really enjoy because it's a bit of everything. I never wanted to be a CEO. Yeah, I've never had any desire whatsoever. I wanted to stay in the football department, working with players and coaches and staff and just be worried about that game rather than all the other things which are really important that a CEO does. That doesn't interest me. And I probably look back now and the amount of video work coaches do on games, reviewing the game and then previewing game, I probably don't miss that, and I probably wouldn't. So I found the perfect job, to be honest with you.
Mate, it's been a journey. You've been all around the world, now found Melbourne, great success, highs and lows, but a lot more highs. Winning things and
I pinched myself, honestly. It was you're just really lucky to get some opportunities, and I took those opportunities. But probably the key is I got opportunities meeting people that can open doors for you, and that's the thing is that you say to your kids and the young people is just just look after people and treat people like you want, but they can help you. And I've just been really lucky. That's probably, and I've just had some really good mentors and over the years, from that way before I even started the academy to the academy and then at Manly and to now. So people that can always make you better and open doors for you. So I think, I enjoy what I do. I look back now that, since January 1990, that's been my job. Yeah. That I've been full-time doing whether it's coaching, and even for those couple of years went to rugby union and what I've been doing in the Storm, that's my job. And the day I left school, someone said you'd be working for 35 years plus. You wouldn't have believed it. So I feel very fortunate, very privileged, and I'm very grateful.
Well, mate, good things happen to good people, Frank, and you're number one in your profession. You're the best in the business, and I value for your friendship, and I very much appreciate you jumping on Chiming in today.
No, Chimes, when you asked me that day on the plane going over to Perth, I was quite humbled and quite chuffed. And again, you look back those days when we were bumping into each other in the corridor at I think it was the Holiday Inn. Was it the Holiday Inn? I can't remember what the name of it was.
How was I looking?
Leeds. Oh, we were both looking a lot better than we are now, Chimes. I've got mirrors, but to think back, we'd be sitting here and all those things. It was just kind of. But they were great days, but so is today too. You enjoy each day. So 100%. Thanks for the opportunity.
No, thanks, Frank. Good on you, mate.